The New York Jets have added reinforcements to the offensive line. We've been asking all offseason, where's the beef? And Joe Douglas has provided. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk. My apologies for my longtime listeners. I know I don't sound normal today. I have just been fighting some sickness the last couple of days that has really just infected my voice. And I apologize if I'm not going to be my crazy, zany self. And if you're new to the channel, I promise you that there's a lot more energy and I'm a lot more entertaining, but I had to muscle through this because, again, I love you guys, and I had to do this because I had to give my thoughts on Morgan Moses. So I'm trying to protect my voice as much as possible, but I had to come on here because I love talking about the Buffet Busters. I love talking about the Jets offseason. There has been a wild offseason so far, but this arguably has been the biggest move for the New York Jets, and I had to give my thoughts. If you're new to the channel, give us a like, bash that subscribe button. And if you are one of our loyal followers, thank you so much for joining us here today. If you'd like also as well, in the community page of our YouTube channel, we have a poll up right now. I'm asking you, how do you grade the Morgan Moses trade? And again, to refresh you, the Jets have swapped their fourth-round picks, picking 112. They dropped back to about 134, and they've swapped the sixth-round pick, which was a compensation pick. So the Jets still, if you are keeping track of the giraffe capital, the Jets still remain with two fourth-round picks, no fifth, but now only 1 6 as opposed to 2 and 2 7. So basically, the Jets traded a sixth-round pick for Morgan Moses, only a $5.5 million cap hit, solid right starter, with someone that I was disappointed the Jets let go a couple years ago. But again, at the time, Mekhi Becton coming into year 2, you felt that the Jets had their long-term tackle in Mekhi Becton. Of course, things have not worked out. But Morgan Moses coming in, all of a sudden, the Jets' offensive line, while it might not look great, has become very interesting because I think they're set at right tackle with Morgan Moses. It's clear that Elijah Vera Tucker is likely going to play right guard, or most likely going to play right guard, which I think is his best position. And I've talked to many people, including like Ladae Dusable, who think he can be an all-pro at that position. Keeping Joe Tippmann, of course, inside, and then adding Simpson is good for two reasons. Number one, a young mauler who brings that nastiness to this offensive line I think this group was missing, and someone that played with Moses last year. And you talk about continuity on the offensive line, and that is incredibly important. So I think this was a huge trade for the Jets. But the biggest thing that I love about this trade is it gives the Jets flexibility, especially with the draft. Now, I've seen a lot of people saying the Jets should still go out and sign another left tackle. I don't hate that idea as well. I've seen a lot of people also saying that the Jets shouldn't draft a tackle. This means that they're out of the market for a tackle at 10. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but the biggest thing is I think they could be interesting. Now, Tyron Smith is still out there. I still would love the Jets to go out there. I think he should still be a priority. I would look to get him and develop a tackle, but at least this gives the Jets flexibility. It allows the Jets to be a little bit more creative, where all of a sudden they're not looking to find two stars. They have added two starters that have had great durability, and it seems like the Jets have 4 stars. They're looking for one starter. Now, one option I think that's going to come potentially to fruition, I know a lot of Jet fans would hate this, is Bakhtiari's a free agent. Now, I think Bakhtiari, if he's going to start the camp and you have a number 1 first-round pick behind him, I feel a lot more comfortable. I'd prefer Bakhtiari as a depth piece. But the other thing you have to keep in mind is the Jets want to develop Carter Warren. I think that this is a good situation for the Jets because with Moses, it does another thing. I think this team really likes Carter Warren. And then I did see a lot of flashes last year. This could be a great situation where you have Carter Warren learn behind Morgan Moses for a year and potentially take over that right tackle position the following season. It allows you to potentially develop some of these younger offensive linemen and have them ready to go and not be pressured to come right in. So for Morgan Moses, again, I think this is a great deal. I still would like them to get Tyron Smith. Bakhtiari at left tackle is an option for a cheap deal. But all of a sudden now the Jets have a lot more options at 10. Where before you felt the Jets were pressured that they had to take a tackle at 10. I still think they should take a tackle. But now all of a sudden the Jets now can be maybe a little aggressive. Maybe Joe Alt's sitting there 6 or 7. They love Joe Alt. They're able to put together a package and jump up and grab him earlier. Maybe there's a situation where at 10, they love Brock Bowers. One of the top 3 receivers is there, and they're able to draft one of those great playmakers because they feel they need more playmakers on this offense. Or what I think is more likely is all of a sudden now, this is an offensive line class where there's probably 3 guys that are ready to start day one, but there's a lot of guys who have a lot of upside, but probably shouldn't start day one. Like Guyton, for example, out of Oklahoma. I think those guys are very intriguing in the middle of this first round. And what the Jets could do if you get a Bakhtiari or a Smith, for example, is trade down a couple spots, move down to 15, 16, 17, get an extra second round pick. You're still able to get a left tackle, but now all of a sudden you're not desperate that guy has to play day one. You're able to sit them. They're able to develop. You can put them behind an offensive line. And basically, if they have to be called in, they're not playing week one. They're called in later in the season, and they're not getting completely overwhelmed right out of the gate. I think that's an option where the Jets can also get more picks. Maybe it also means the Jets can be a little bit more aggressive. One big thing to keep in mind with this trade is they now still have 2 fourth-round picks. Could they use those in a package to move into the third round, get 2 third-round picks? Could they use them to get back into the second round, use that third-round pick that's at 72, a fourth, maybe something else to move up? Or they use ammo to go and trade for a receiver. I mean, Morgan Moses, we didn't think would be on the market, and he was. And the Jets were able to pull off a trade. Maybe there's a wide receiver. I know Cortland Sutton, the rumor is he's not getting traded, but maybe there's a receiver out there that the Jets could trade for. Maybe there's a receiver that if one of these moves goes through, that all of a sudden these teams are trying to make a move and get a different receiver. Maybe they could go out and still side Tosh Boyd. Maybe they can go out and side OBJ. It gives the Jets a lot more options where they're not as desperate in the draft. And my biggest thing, too, is they could trade back, get a developmental tackle that doesn't have to play right away. Because I do think Joe Douglas is still trying to build an immediate contender, but at the same time, build a team that is here for the long haul. So overall, I love this trade for the Jets. They barely gave up anything. Great for the cap hit. Moses is a solid pro. Even if he's showing a slight decline, I still think he is an above-average starter. You put him next to AVT, who could be a Pro Bowler. You have Joe Tippmann, who's a rising offensive lineman. I think they have a solid starting left guard. Maybe not great, but at least serviceable and durable. I don't think it's really a step down compared to what they had at Lagan Thompson. So now all of a sudden the Jets only have to figure out the left tackle position. Maybe it turns out that Olufushanu falls to them. Now, again, I'm curious to see how the draft will play out because a couple of teams that I thought would be out of the tackle market could be back in. The Titans, of course, having Calvin Ridley. And if Jet fans are upset, I would not give giving Calvin Ridley $90 million. I thought that contract was absurd. And all of a sudden, now the Titans, I could see drafting an offensive lineman at 7. The Falcons at 8, I think, are another team that could be looking. You have Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles. 4-year contract. You would assume he's going to be at least the starter in their plans for at least 2, probably 3 years. I don't think they're looking to draft a quarterback right now. So I think that they could be in the market for a tackle. I think the Giants, with their offseason, have pulled themselves out of the tackle market, which helps the Jets. Chargers, I still think, could draft potentially an offensive lineman. The Bears at 9 are really the wild card to me. I think they should draft a tackle, but who knows? There might even be a situation, too, and I know Jet fans, I could just imagine this, where the Jets trade down, and they're still to potentially get the best pass rusher in this draft because there's so many great offensive players. I know people will be pulling their hairs out, especially after the Bryce Huff deal. And again, my thoughts on the Bryce Huff deal, I'll give them to you now because I didn't have a chance because, again, and I apologize, my voice has been very hoarse this week. I've been trying to rest it. I've just been fighting something all week. I don't know what it is. And sorry, if I cough, it's just because I just have something in my throat and I apologize for that. So, but I had to give my thoughts. So my basic thoughts on Huff, and I'll get to your comments in a second, is I think the Jets botched that situation. Now, again, people love to dig at the Jets and say that they're a terrible organization, but I will say this. If you're a player, the Jets will do right by you. They traded Mecole Hardman and gave him an opportunity. They let Bryce Huff go and test the market instead of playing games with him. I've been on the record. I said this in January. I think they should have tagged him, trade him. I think you see the value for the pass rusher. Burns went for a second and a fifth. I just feel like you could have gone at least a second and a fifth from somewhere just to rebuild the draft capital. But let's put it this way. I think that if I have to give a side of the ball the benefit of the doubt, it's the defensive side. They've shown they can develop players. Let's see what they can do. And all I can say is for Will McDonald, it's his opportunity to step up because the Jets are really going to need him next year. I like some of the defensive tackle moves. Again, I understand Jefferson was really good. I would have liked to see them bring him back, but Kinlaw, I know it's a deal. A lot of Jet fans feel they overpaid for him. Again, we don't know who was competing for him, but he's a second-round pick, a lot of talent. I think the Jets' defense has done a really good job of getting the most out of players. I'm curious to see what they got with him. I love the guy from the Cardinals. I think they basically got two players with roles they needed. They got the run stuffer that they needed early in the downs, and they got a good pass rusher on the interior. So overall, I think the Jets, again, it hasn't been the sexiest free agency, but I do think it is good. Love the show. Thank you so much. And again, Charles, thank you so much. I apologize. I haven't talked more. I wanted to be here on Monday. I wanted to be here on Tuesday, but just my voice, like you think it's bad now. Like it was horrible. And again, I'm going to bring you a lot more. I have a new mock draft that's cooking in the pot. I have a new full NFL mock draft that's cooking in the pot. That'll be next Monday. I was going to do the mock draft this Monday for the NFL. But of course, I sound like I want to potentially, am hunting for the Joker right now with my voice. So my apologies. But again, guys, if you're new to the channel, you can go to our poll. You can react to the Morgan Moses trade in there, give your grade. And if you're in the live stream right now, you can ask us questions. Of course, if you're joining us after, you can check out our latest videos. You can check out the comments. If you're joining us after the live stream, you can ask us questions in the comments. I will be happy to answer them as always. So again, please, if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Overall, again, I think this is a good move by Joe Douglas. And the thing I do think Joe Douglas is really good at, you can question some of his draft picks. You can question some of the moves basically that he has made in free agency. But I do think the biggest thing that I see here is that he is still really good at the trades. I think this was great value. And it's clear that right now the Jets have done their due diligence to improve this offensive line. And the other thing, too, is I just see that this team has done a really good job of not overdoing it. Now, again, I know a lot of Jet fans want to see them break the bank, spend big money, and I get that. And I still want this team to make some big moves, whether it's a trade or not. But at the same time, I think that Joe Douglas, right or wrong, has a plan. He's going down with his plan. And look, I can respect that. I think that he's not going to get outside of himself. And I think Connor Hughes dropped a great report the night before free agency. Like, don't expect the Jets to be stupid in free agency. And look, I think that the Jets have put themselves in a position where they're good long-term and short-term. But here's the other thing. If this fails, Joe Douglas is gone. I think that that's pretty clear. But look, I think they got solid players. Now, again, did they get great players? No. Did they get players that really push the needle? No. Is it frustrating that they've lost a great player like Bryce Huff? Yes. Is it frustrating that they lost a talented safety like Jordan Whitehead? Yes. But I am curious to see what they do. I do think they're going to extend DJ Reed, who I think is an integral part of this defense. Sorry, my throat is just killing me right now. It's like, and I'm doing my best to pop through it. So let me take a little lozenge. Hopefully that helps. Helps with it. But again, I had to be on here on the stream just to be here. Thanks for the cheese. A+ move. I can agree. You can put that in the comments as well. Frank, if I said your last name wrong, I'm just going to say Frank. You think we get Bakhtiari? I think they do. And the reason I think Bakhtiari will be appealing to the Jets is because I think he's going to come cheap. And I think where the Jets are going to spend is on receiver. Mike Williams, of course, got cut by the Chargers. I could see the Jets putting the money where the wide receiver position is, so they don't have to worry about it in the draft. And look, I think the Jets are going to draft at least 2 linemen. I really do. Maybe more, but I think that at the bare minimum, they're drafting 2 offensive linemen. So I think that they get Bakhtiari on the cheap deal. I see Kayuka Jet fan I got cut off. I'm happy Jordan Whitehead is gone. Look, Kareem, Jordan Whitehead gets a lot of crap. I think he was a solid safety. Was a good playmaker on the ball. I know the tackle left something to be desired, but I think he was fine at safety. But again, this defense, I don't think you want to overpay for safety. In terms of the free agency, I think they're going to attack the wide receiver market. But again, I almost feel like Douglas is more comfortable with the trade for 2 reasons. Number one, I think it allows them to get the guy they specifically want. But the other reason I think they like the trade market is the salary cap. I think he's looking for a guy where it's not going to kill the cap, where Mike Williams could potentially be looking at the deal that Calvin Ridley just got and be like, I've been more productive and haven't been suspended for a full year. I'd like $100 million. And right now, that's not out of the question. That's a lot of lettuce, but you're seeing what receivers are going for right now. And I think they're looking at that and going, okay, well, maybe we can get like someone that's already on a team that's making a good contract. Solomon Jets at 2 stars gone the defense. Huff is a big loss, but again, you have Will McDonald behind him. I still think the Jets really like Tony Adams. I think the biggest X factor is going to be Ashton Davis. Connor Hughes reported Davis probably isn't coming back to the Jets because he wants to start. Again, I could see that, but at least Chuck Clark's coming back, and I could see this team doing what they did last year and looking to late on day 3 or the undrafted market for safety for depth. I don't think that they need to find a high-end safety in the draft or free agency, but I could see them attacking that route. Thanks for the cheese. I can't remember if you knew the channel. If you are new to the channel, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the cheese. Love the Corvette there. I'm guessing that's the SRX. Try to guess what years that is. Now we sign OT and draft a receiver, or sign wide receiver and draft OT. I still think they're drafting OT. Question is when. I mean, I still would go with Tyron Smith if it was me and still draft a guy to develop behind him. But it depends on the free agent market. Again, here's the other thing with the receiver market. I could see him signing someone, and could a surprise be this? Corey Davis comes back and they sign like an OBJ for a 1-year deal. So you have those 2 guys. Yeah, maybe they're not the most exciting number 2s, but you have some interesting depth and interesting pieces to work with. But I still think the Jets are going to draft a tackle. It's not if, but when. I mean, he did have multiple interceptions. I think he wasn't the worst safety. I mean, Jamal Adams was the worst safety because he can't cover and basically gets injured all the time. So I think that point isn't valid. I hope the Jets bring back Becton and draft the wide receiver. I don't think Becton's coming back. The only thing I will say to that, Drones, is if Becton's coming back, it's going to be as a backup. And I'm not sure he wants that role. Because right tackle is filled with Morgan Moses. And I don't think the Jets are going to roll into a season with a left tackle, Mekhi Becton. The way he comes back, if I'm honest, it's going to be a league minimum. I just feel like there's going to be some team not. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit surprised. And I do think for some of the Mekhi Becton truthers, it's a bitter pill to swallow when, he's been out there and we're seeing all these tackles going off the board. And Mekhi Becton doesn't even seem to be getting a sniff. Like, is Mekhi Becton going to be like Morgan Moses was for the Jets a couple years ago? Someone that makes it through the draft, makes it through the summer, is out there during a training camp, a tackle gets hurt, and he gets invited. Like, that could be something big. Yeah, in drones, I'm going to miss Huff too. I hate the way they handled it. You hope they learn from it. But again, the one silver thing I will say about this is I think the Jets feel that Huff is a good player, but he was elevated in the system because he had Quinnen Williams. He had great corners, and that they can find and develop guys in this system. Again, you can disagree with that logic, but the other thing too is I think the Jets are also looking at the big picture and going, Sauce Gardner is a top 5 player at his position, no question. We're going to have to pay him a lot of money. Garrett Wilson's probably a top 5 or 10 player at his position. We're going to have to pay him a lot of money. Breece Hall is going to be a top 3 or 4 at his position. Probably not long-term, but we're going to have to pay him money. I think the Jets are trying to look ahead a little bit and saying, we have some young studs that we got to pay. And yes, Huff is a great player, but is he one of the top players at his position? I mean, I think it'll be a great debate. I think he goes to a great system. I think he's going to be great with the Eagles, much to the chagrin of Jet fans. But look, he did what was right by him, and I don't blame Huff. I know a lot of people are going to kill Huff, but look, he had to do what was best for him and his family, and I am completely fine with him getting the most money. It's on the table, and that's what Morgan Moses does. It allows them, like, if this team really falls in love with a great Brock Bowers, maybe it gives them the option they want him there. If Odunze's there, it gives them the option. But the other thing, too, is either way, it helps the Jets. Because here's the hypothetical. Maybe let's play the game. Brock Bowers falls to the Jets at 10, or Odunze falls to the Jets at 10. And I know a lot of Jet fans are like, well, that should mean the Jets trade him. That should mean that the Jets should absolutely take those guys. And I would say, pause. The Jets, I do think, want more picks. I do think the Jets want to make some trades. I think the Jets are going to look to trade for a veteran receiver. All of a sudden, you look behind the Jets. Two things have happened that really have helped them. Vikings don't have Kirk Cousins, and Denver has cut Russell Wilson. Both those teams probably are going to be looking for a quarterback. What does that mean? Does that mean a team like, hello, Las Vegas at 13, hello, New Orleans at 14, hello, even Seattle at 16, hello, LA at 19, hello, maybe, let's look at those teams. All of a sudden, could the Jets be a place if JJ McCarthy falls to 10 that they want to trade up? Or maybe Denver wants to get Odunze because he's cheap. They don't have to pay him, and they're paying Russell Wilson to basically play for a different team. Could Vegas, who just cut their receiver, Hunter Renfrow, want to get a cheaper receiver? Could Indianapolis, even though they have Michael Pittman, say, you know what, we're at 15. We get Anthony Richardson, a great weapon. Could Jacksonville at 17 go, we just paid all this money for Calvin Ridley. We just lost Calvin Ridley. We really need to give Trevor Lawrence a weapon. The better players, if they fall down to the board, also help the Jets because all of a sudden, maybe the Jets trade back, still get a good tackle, and then get a second-round pick in a loaded wide receiver draft, maybe like a Ricky Pearsall in round 2. Like, you can get a great receiver. Like, every expert you talk to, if you give their top 75, 14 or 15 of them are receivers. And I get that there are 3 beautiful sport car wide receivers at the top of this draft. But there's a lot of really nice models just behind that you can get later in this draft. I think it is more likely because you can get a second or third round pick. And again, I'm not sure if Fwung is going to be there, but ideally, wouldn't that be great? The Jets trade back to 14, 15. They get Fatano, a great developmental prospect for the offensive line. They have a second-round pick they can use on a weapon. I think he would be great. The problem with Keenan Allen is he's still on the team, and you'd have to trade for him. I think that the Chargers have made their decision that they're going to stay with Keenan Allen because they cut Mike Williams. Now, Mike Williams, again, if you have to pay him a lot of money and not trade any assets, that might be a good thing. But if you're the Jets, you want them to eat some of Keenan Allen's salary. Renfrow, Renfrow's tough because I think he tailed off a little bit last year, the general. I wouldn't hate it. Again, it's for the right price. Bakhtiari, again, I here's the thing. If you really want Brock Bowers, to me, it's got to be sign Tyron Smith. Because at least with Smith, I know he's got injury history, but at least I'm projecting him to play 13 to 14 games. And then I can say, we didn't get a great guy, but maybe we be aggressive and trade up into the second round and get a developmental tackle that someone's overlooking. If you really want Bowers, that's the way you got to go. Because I don't trust Bakhtiari. Bakhtiari can't play. The only reason I'm saying Bakhtiari is you have a tackle who has experience, who could start the season. If you get through half a season with Bakhtiari, that's great. But I want him to at least start the season so you can have that tackle eased into the left tackle. Like Guyton, if you drafted him, eased in. Fatuana, eased into that left tackle position. That's where I'm going with Bakhtiari. Because that's how I see them potentially utilizing him correctly. Now, and if you want Bowers, then I'm like, okay, I can stomach it because if I have Smith, I feel a lot better. But if it's Bakhtiari, 2 games in, he blows his knee out. Then we're back to, all right, is Carter Warren your left tackle all year? Is Max Mitchell maybe? Do we screw with AVT again and put him at tackle? I just think there's too many variables. Why didn't Joe D get something for Huff before the trade? Here's the thing, Frank. The Jets at the trade deadline, we remember 4-3. They were still buyers. Like, if anything, the Jets should have bought at the trade deadline where they were. They should have bought a backup quarterback. And I'll give you my thoughts. I think Tyrod Taylor was a great option. Great clubhouse guy. Can win you a game or two if he needs to be in there. I think he's a good mentor if you get a third-string quarterback again. I still think the Jets need to draft a developmental guy. And you can see they're still interested because they're going all these QB pro days. But I would say it's different than Saquon. I felt the Giants were out of it with Saquon, where the Jets at the deadline, they were 4-3. I mean, they weren't giving up on the season. I still think, Frank, I would have liked them to franchise tag him. I know it would have created cap hell, but it's just tough to let him go. Zach Wilson in a 4-for-3. I mean, is it like the first pick in the fourth round and the last pick in the third round? Look, if the Jets get anything, I mean, Mac Jones went for 6. I mean, the NFL is telling you what it thinks of this class. I mean, Justin Fields, who many were like, oh, he's going to be a starter next year. No one has gone after him. Everyone's like, Justin Fields is going to Atlanta. Nope, they signed Kirk Cousins. Well, he could go to Minnesota. They signed Sam Darnold. Okay, like, I would love it. They just swap for Fields again. I don't think the Jets are going to do that because of the contract situation. But, I mean, Fields to me has shown more upside than Zach has. And for Zach, I just don't see it. Like Minnesota, do they take a flyer, like a 7th-round pick? I almost feel like the Jets try to recoup that 6. I would say Zach Wilson, the 7th, to try to get a 6 at this point is the best option as well. And Jacob Super Duper Cooper, I'm exhausted with Bakhtiari crap. He hasn't played in a year. So nuts, serious, Nathan around. And look, Jacob, I get it. Bakhtiari is a polarizing character. But the problem is, you saw when he was cut, Aaron Rodgers and him going back and forth on Twitter. And we know Rodgers is going to have a say. And I unfortunately think that Bakhtiari is going to be here. Now, if you were to tell me Bakhtiari is here to compete, if you're here to tell me that Bakhtiari is here, and of course the Jets thanking Bryce Huff in the tweet, and Bryce Huff saying 100%. So I know Jet fans are a little salty about this. And Justin Hardy tweeting, of course, around this time, everybody forgets how special teams win, lose games till it's too late, but we're going to see. I try to bring him back. The good news is the Jets brought back their starting kicker and Pro Bowler. Trying to check around here as well. But it is interesting because this safety market is depressed. I went beside the Jets signed a safety. I mean, I thought Poyer was going to get more for Buffalo. He signed for $2 million. Jordan Whitehead getting less money than he did after 6 interceptions with the Jets. Like, you look like he again, I think that there's so many safeties out there too. I wouldn't be surprised the Jets sign a safety. I'm curious which one they might be interested, but and look, I think that with Morgan Moses, you have a boulder at right tackle. You have someone that is going to stabilize that position. And I think it allows you to basically develop someone behind the right tackle position. I think Carter Warren could be a future starter, but you need to develop him. And this allows him to maybe be that developmental right tackle. I wouldn't hate Tyler Boyd. And again, there's a lot of options still out there for a receiver. Everyone's panicking about the receivers. I mean, Mike Williams is now out there. There's plenty of trade options. There's the draft. There's like guys like Odell, Taj Boyd. I think Tyler Boyd. I think the free agent market could be funny with receivers for this reason, because there are so many receivers in this draft. I'm kind of curious to see if maybe some of these receivers hang around in free agency for a while, because some of these teams are going to be looking at it and going, there are so many receivers in this draft. Is it worth it for us to take a dart throw and not pay the guy anything in round 2 or 3, as opposed to paying like a number two, like a Calvin Ridley, $23 million a year? Is it make better financial sense if we gamble on the young player? If we hit, hey, we got someone that's on a cheap deal for 3 years. Like I keep saying this, wide receivers are the new quarterbacks of the NFL in terms of guys are going to want to draft them in the first round and take them in the draft, because if you can get a receiver and he hits, all of a sudden you don't have to pay him for 4 years. You don't. Cameron Curl from Washington is a baller. Yeah, I do think he is. Ooh, here we go. Jacob coming from the top rope with that freaking elbow, man. Would you rather get Joe Alter, but sorry, Fatuana, and a solid wide receiver round 2? Again, they don't have a second round wide receiver. Assuming our other option as would be Bakhtiari and Warren. I'm of the belief I would almost rather trade up and get Alt. Like I'm of the opinion if a team offers you an opportunity and you trade this year's first, a third, and next year's second, I wouldn't give up next year's one, but next year's second, I'd move up for Alt. I love Fashanu. I would my thing, the perfect scenario for Bakhtiari would be this, is if you got Fashanu and you had Bakhtiari start the season. That way you could ease Fashanu into it. Yeah, and look, I got the whole VP thing. It's just crazy. I again, until I think this is just a lot of smoke with this whole VP thing. I'm not even going down that rabbit hole tonight. I just think that look, I think it's a lot of smoke. Aaron Rodgers has a lot of polarizing opinions, of course. And again, they reached out to him to be a candidate. I mean, Aaron Rodgers hasn't said anything. So let's see. Interesting. On Tuesday, Penn State coach James Franklin suggested that Eagles GM Howie Roseman spoke directly to Saquon Barkley during the negotiation period, which would violate the tampering rule. On Wednesday, the Eagles said they only speak to player agents. So, Eagles and Giants with a little bit of drama around the whole Saquon thing. And another interesting move for the Jets that could be right around their alley. Breaking news, the Cardinals are releasing former Pro Bowl left tackle DJ Humphries after 8 seasons. He tore his ACL late last season and had a large 2024 cap hit. Now, again, likely not open for opening day, but this is a team where all of a sudden now 2 things impact this draft with this news. Number one, that there's another prime left tackle on there. Again, won't start to later in the season. But now, all of a sudden, forever, we were saying Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to the Cardinals, or the Cardinals are going with the receiver. But now they're releasing their Pro Bowl tackle. Could Joe Alt be in play as high as pick number 4? Not exactly great news for the Joe Alt news, but it is fascinating because, again, this is big news because if you are a team, you don't let Pro Bowl left tackles go. You like to keep them around. So this DJ Humphries news that is breaking is huge because I'm curious, will the Jets explore him? Still 30 years old, tore his ACL last season, probably going to miss the start of the season, but a great player. They are releasing him, and now all of a sudden you have to wonder, guys, could Joe Alt be in play at number 4? Do the Cardinals look at this and go, Marvin Harrison could be one of the best receivers in the NFL. But is it a smarter strategy if we take a franchise left tackle who we don't have to pay for 4 or 5 years, that will protect our quarterback from day 1 of the season next year? And, oh, by the way, we could probably still draft a really good dynamic receiver at the beginning of round number 2. Like, all of a sudden, the mock draft changes dramatically as the Cardinals, who you thought had their left tackle, all of a sudden do not have a left tackle. Could Joe Alt go as high as 4 now? I mean, that is some breaking news that is definitely going to impact the draft. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. I'm curious to see the timeline for DJ Humphries because I'm trying to remember when exactly he tore his ACL. He did it on New Year's Eve, so he basically would not be until late in the season next year. But I mean, I'd still look at it. It could be a situation where I'd still sign him for depth and let him rehab. There's a lot of good running back options. I wouldn't hate Kareem Hunt. I thought he'd be a good fit with the Jets last year. I'm curious though. I just feel like the Jets, if they're going to address the running back, might do it in the draft. I don't hate Hunt. I think Hunt's got still more juice than Dalvin Cook did last year. I would definitely look at running back on this market. I still don't think they're done. Wide receivers, obviously the big need. Could they be sneaky and get it? I think the Jets could also be sneaky. Could they get a tight end in free agency still? Could they add another defensive pass rusher? Like, I'm really curious. Like, could they bring in a pass rusher on kind of a one-year deal? Or is there maybe even a pass rusher they might look to trade for? Maybe they feel like there's someone like a Quincy Williams who they feel is being undervalued on a certain team. And one of the things that happens a lot in the NFL, which could maybe help them find a pass rusher, is we see scheme changes. Sometimes there's guys that fit that 4-3 defensive end position, and they're not comfortable on the outside. So you wonder, would they be better off trading and getting into a system where they fit? I mean, that could be something we have to keep an eye on. That could definitely be something that the Jets are looking to explore and being creative. And look, you got to give Joe Douglas this. Like, you can bash him for his free agency. You can bash him for his draft. But I don't think that there's a trade you look back on saying, well, the Jets got fleeced, or that was a bad trade. I feel like every trade the Jets either made out fantastically, like this one, or they at least got fair compensation. But that's going to do it for this episode. Again, guys, we will have more Jets content, more Jets mock draft Monday coming up. I apologize. I want to talk to you guys more. I love you guys. But unfortunately, as you can hear, my voice, I only have so many bullets in the chamber today to talk with you today. I mean, I want to be able to talk to you next week, so I have to give this voice a little bit of a rest right now. Again, I apologize I wasn't here on Monday and Tuesday. I wanted to be here, but obviously even worse, I'm just getting over something that's impacted my voice. And, again, I appreciate all the love and support. If you're new to the channel, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you're joining us for the first time and you're a big Jet fan or you're a fan of the NFL or the NFL draft, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we will see you next time only here on Rich Sports Talk.